Okay, come on, sunflower. Come on, Daisy. Let's go and get milk. Come on. Come on. There you are. Have a good breakfast, okay? Come on, here we go. Come on. Come on, girl. Come on. Have your drink. Good old Sunday. Come on. Good old Sunday. You can retape anything you want, just like in a cassette.
Yep.
Here we go.
Okay.
Matthew, I can remember out country tracking in Nova Scotia. That was my first real experience out in the farm country. And some days we'd walk miles between the houses, and there wouldn't be any lunch. But along the roadside of the railroad track, where the sun could get through and shine down on the ground cover, we'd have big patches of blueberries. We'd take our hats, we used to wear a felt hat back then, and we'd turn it upside down and put a clean handkerchief in the hat, and then we'd fill it full of blueberries from those sunny, warm banks where the blueberries grew, and have a full hat full of blueberries for lunch. I remember in one evening in a little farming community where we were invited for supper with a family that was kind to us, and she had got on the coast and cooked it in milk and served us some milk broth, and I thought that was the best fish I had ever eaten. Those people out there didn't, many of them, have any electricity yet, so they'd have to have a lamp at night, and they'd cook on wood stoves. Some of them would have piles of wood that would be as big as their house that they had hauled in from the woods and split. Usually the only room in the house that would be warm would be the kitchen. And the kitchens were big, and they'd keep the fire in the cook stove going. And then they'd have a little couch, like a day bed in the kitchen, where they could lay down if they wanted to during the daytime in that warm room. And all the rest of the house would be cold. And I had bread out of those wood cook stoves that was wonderful, great big puffy loaves like this with crust that was a half-inch thick. And they'd serve it with real butter and then usually molasses. And I came to really love their big puffy loaves of white bread with butter and molasses. Another time in the evening, when we were in a little farming community, but also on the seacoast where some of them would do fishing in the summer months, why, a man had just come back with a bucket full of lobster. And the littlest ones he had brought home, the bigger ones he had sold. The big truck had come and collected the swordfish and the lobsters that had been caught and hauled it down to the States. But he took that bucket of lobsters and seawater and cooked them. And for our supper, he put a big platter like that on the table and said, just eat what you'd like. And I never ate lobster that tasted that good before or since in my life. It was just wonderful. Another evening, I remember, in such a little fishing village, was when we couldn't find any place to stay that night. And so we ended up just walking and sitting and wondering what to do through the night. Finally, we saw a little church there that was open. They didn't lock the church, so we went inside where it wasn't quite so cold and laid on a couple benches for part of the night. Very early in the morning, when the first rays of light came, we went over near the coastline and sat down to study. And while we were sitting there studying, huddled up, trying to keep warm, a truck backed up to the rocky coastline, and he started throwing old bread and cakes and things from a bakery in the town nearby that I guess had gotten too old to sell. He threw them out in the ocean. And when he drove away, we hurried over to the edge where there was a big rocky cliff and looked down there, and there they were floating out in the water. And I was so tempted to just jump right in and save a loaf or two of bread. And I remembered the advice not to go swimming in the ocean, so we didn't. We went back to studying, and then we got thinking. Some of the people had told us how snails in the shells that grow on the rocks down by the water line are good to eat. So we went back and looked around, and we found that there were a whole bunch of them, and they were big, nice big size like this. We found a big can about this size that was empty, that had been discarded, and we rinsed it out, put some seawater in it, and then we started plucking the nicest, biggest snails we could find off the rocks. We put them in there and started a little fire, and after they had boiled a while, we found they popped out of the shells so we could pull them out. And we sat and had snails for breakfast that morning. That was the only thing we had had to eat for about a day, and they sure tasted good. I'll never forget that morning eating snails on the coast of Nova Scotia. There's many different gadgets now in most apps. I think I'll just grab my clothes and hop in the truck.